Hello there, this is a complete guide for Canopy, a technical behavior pack for Minecraft Bedrock Edition, which allows more control over what matters from a technical perspective of the game. So we have a few things to go over during this showcase. First we'll look at the InfoDisplay, we'll look at game control, we'll look at game monitoring, we'll look at creative tools, and we'll look at survival tools. And there are timestamps for each of these down in the description if you're looking for something in particular. So let's get right into explaining Canopy and how to load it on your world. So let's go over really quickly how to add Canopy to your world. So once you have Canopy installed, just by opening the MC add-on file into Minecraft, you can add it to any world. I'm going to call this world Canopy Showcase. You can add it to any world just by going to your resource packs and behavior packs, adding these two, the Canopy BP behavior pack and the Canopy RP resource pack. And then you go to experiments and you go to beta APIs and you turn this on and you say turn on experiments anyway. And then we can go to create a world. So here we are in the new world, and right when everything starts off, you should be able to see this. By default, every Canopy feature is disabled. So this is currently a completely normal Minecraft world with nothing enabled. So before we do anything else, let's take a look at the help command. Every command in Canopy starts with a /. This is because behavior packs do not have access to normal / commands. So we have to sort of define our own. So // is what we use for Canopy, and the /help command will show you everything that Canopy can do. This is a lot of information all at once, so we can divide this up. We can do /help features to get a list of all of the features and whether they're enabled or not. We can do /help InfoDisplay to get a list of all of the InfoDisplay features and whether they're enabled or not. And then we can do help pages 1, 2, 3, and 4 to look at a certain page of the help. So one thing to note when you get started is that this feature command, which lets you disable and re-enable all of these different features, is going to be disabled by default. And because you are the administrator of this world, you need to give yourself access to this command in order to use these. So we're going to make sure that in the game settings, activate cheats is enabled. And we're going to do /tag @self add canopy admin, just like that. And that is going to give us access to the /feature command. You can see now it gives us a usage, whereas before, if we didn't have this tag, it would say you don't have permission. So let's start off talking about the InfoDisplay. The InfoDisplay is a little box that will appear in the top right of your screen when you turn on the associated functions. So, for example, we can see all of the InfoDisplay stuff if we do /help InfoDisplay. Let's turn all of these on. This is the quickest way to turn all of them on. So now we can see a ton of information about our game. You can see those are my current coordinates on the top. Next to it, it says I'm facing east, which is +X. You can see the TPS, the server is running at 20 TPS, that's perfect. You can see that there are 8 entities in front of me. It's not directly how many are on the screen, but it is pretty close. The light level is 15, and the biome I'm currently in is the beach. If I walk over here, it's going to say plains. There it is. See that we're 3 days into this world. It is currently almost 9 a.m. and the moon is a waning crescent. Also, if I look at blocks, it'll show me this is sand. In case you didn't know this was sand. If I grab a barrel, something like that, a couple other items, I could put stuff in the barrel. You can see in the top right, it tells me that the barrel has chiseled bookshelves, barrels, and lecterns in it. So these are all the basic functions of the InfoDisplay. It has 2 others, which are hopper counters and event trackers, and we'll talk about those later in the video. Now, before we move on, it's good to mention that in spectator mode, the info display will stay in the top right corner. So this can be super helpful if you're looking through a contraption. You can see that this shulker box has a bunch of raw iron blocks in it. You can see this dispenser has arrows in it. You can see this donkey has a bunch of glass. So the info display can also be very helpful for looking at things while in spectator mode. So now let's look at one of the ways that Canopy can help us control the world. And this is the tick command. You can see there's 3 ways to use this. You can do /tick and type in a milliseconds that you want each tick to be. You can do tick step or tick reset to reset the game to the normal tick speed. So if we do /tick 500, so about half a second per tick instead of 20 ticks per second, then the game will slow down a little bit, and we will be able to see that all of these contraptions back here are running at a slower rate. Now we can make this even slower if we want. We can go to 1,000. Additionally, we have tick step, which will allow the server to run at a normal tick rate for by default just 1 tick, or more ticks if you specify more in this argument here. So if we do tick step 20, this is telling the game to run at a normal rate for exactly 1 second. So once we're done with our slowed down tick speed, we can always reset it with /tick reset. Now the game will run normally. It's worth noting that the tick speed cannot be sped up by this command. It can only be slowed down, and this is just a limitation of being a behavior pack. So now I'm here by a 25 times iron farm. You can see the TPS in the top right is dipping down a little bit because there are over 500 villagers in this setup. What I'm here to show you is the next one of our game control commands, and that would be spawn mocking. And at first it's going to tell you that spawn mocking is not allowed in the world and you need to enable the feature. And to do that, you just do feature allow spawn mocking true. So now if we do spawn mocking, it'll tell us the usage, which is true or false. If we set it to true, then the spawn algorithm will run, but no mobs will be able to spawn. Now, why would you want this? So this is useful because of the rest of the spawn command. This is a pretty large command, but it essentially allows you to track mob spawns and get information about how efficiently your farms are running. So if we do spawn tracking, we do start, spawns are now being tracked. Since spawn mocking is enabled, mobs will no longer spawn, but they will be tracked. So if at any time we do spawn tracking, we will get a breakdown like this. So we see iron golems have spawned 4 times. Let me stand in the middle here to make this a little more efficient. And we can see cats have spawned, iron golems have spawned, that sort of thing. So while spawn mocking is enabled, this is a type of way to get kind of an upper bound on your mob farm. So if spawn mocking were to not be enabled, so if we go back and we turn spawn mocking to false, mobs will spawn as normal. So spawn mocking allows the mob cap to never get full. That gives you an upper bound on your mob farm, just so you can see how efficient you could possibly make it. Some other things that the spawn command does, you can do spawn test, which resets both hopper counters, which we'll talk about later, and spawn counters at the same time. We've been here about 1.5 minutes, and we're getting 0.7 mobs per tick. 96.8% of ticks did not spawn any mobs. 3.2% of ticks did spawn mobs. And on average, we got 1 mob per tick that spawned mobs. So 1 mob per attempt. In general, for an efficient farm, you want to get this number as low as possible, this number as high as possible. This is pretty typical for a farm on Bedrock Edition, it spends a lot of time with the mob cap full because the mob caps are so small. You can see we got a zombie pigman from a portal somewhere. We got 53 iron golems in the past minute and a half. We're getting about 2200 per hour. You have those same statistics on top for each category and each dimension. We also got some cat spawns from the villages. Now, additionally, we can also track a certain mob type, and we can also track a certain area. If I wanted to track only this module, I could go here, and I can do /spawn tracking, and I can say, I only want to track iron golems. We can track only iron golems within this area. So if I copy the position of the block in front of me, it's going to throw an error, which is fine. We can go over here and do the same thing. Copy, paste, good. So now this little green thing will show up to show you where we're tracking spawns within. And we can do spawn test to reset everything. It'll also show you down here, spawns are being tracked for iron golems in this area. So spawn tracking, we haven't gotten any spawns yet. So as soon as we see an iron golem in there, we can run spawn tracking again, and it should give us our statistics. There's an iron golem right there. We can do spawn tracking. This is most of the spawn command, although there are a couple other things. So once we're tracking spawns, we can do spawn recent, and this will show you all of the different positions where any mobs have spawned in the Nether overworld or end from the last 30 seconds. This can be useful for doing things like needing to light up caves under your farms. There's also spawn entities, which will show you, okay, there's 500 villagers here, so there's a lot of them. And here are positions of basically all of the entities that exist in the world. Why are there so many cats here? So that's about it for the spawn tracking command. I hope you find it very useful to get statistics about your farms and increase their output. So next on our list is hopper counters. And these are another useful tool for doing things like getting the output of your farms. This is essentially an item counter. So to create new hopper counters, all you have to do is enable the hopper counters feature. And once that's enabled, any hopper that you place pointing into a piece of wool will create a hopper counter. And you can see in the info display in the top right, we have a red 0 and a blue 0. These are for our hopper counters. So if we toss any old item into here, it's going to count up in that info display. And you can also see that this hopper is empty. So any items that go into here are deleted. So this is a creative only tool. Hopper counters come with their own /counter command. So running this command by itself will show you statistics about the different colors of wool and of what they've collected. We can see it's collected 8 cobble deep slate, and we'll go over the rest of this in a minute. So there are essentially 16 channels, one for each color of wool. We can have as many of these as we want. So all 3 of these will count into the same one. If we put more cobble deep slate into a different hopper that's pointing into the same color of wool, it's going to count towards the red items. So looking at this really quick, it has been a minute and a half since we started our test. There's been 13 total items, which is essentially 500 items per hour. We've collected 13 cobble deep slate in the red and nothing in the blue. And this is also per hour, per minute, per second. We can also query just the color. So if we do just red, then it's not going to print the blue part. It's only going to do the red section. Say if we drop some more items in here, we can see the blue. That is not how you spell blue. That's how you spell blue. So we've gotten 6 oak wood, and essentially, yes, it's been 3 minutes since our test started. So if you want to restart the test, you can always do counter reset, and this will reset all of the items from the counters. So if we query them, there's nothing in them until we put some new items in there. If you're looking to reset only one color, that's fine too. We can just do counter blue reset, and if we look in the top right, we can see that our one pumpkin is still in the red and is not in the blue. Counters also have the real-time command. This is an argument that you can specify to essentially get the normal statistics, but it will use the real time instead of the tick-based time. So normally hopper counters will assume 20 ticks per second and do all their calculations off of that. However, if your world is lagging and your TPS is dropping, this won't be accurate, so you can get the statistics in real time as well. And you can also get real time for a specific color just like this. It is worth noting that hopper counters must be placed by hand in order to be assembled. It's not just any of this setup in the world. So if your counters aren't displaying in your info display, that means they're not working. If I go like this and I move it, it's going to go away because this was disassembled, but it can't be reassembled again. This ends up not being much of an issue. If you copy and paste something with structure blocks, all you need to do is fly along, break the hoppers or break the wool or something like that, and just place them all in. Just to show you, there are hopper counters for literally every single color, all 16 of them. There you go. I throw my hopper in that one and my wool in this one, and I ask Canopy for the output. Going back to the /spawn command, while tracking, you can do /spawn test to both reset the tracking and reset the hopper counters. So this is essentially a full retest of your farm in one command. Super easy, just like that. Additionally, Canopy also has script event commands. So this command, /scriptEvent, is a normal Minecraft command which can trigger things in Canopy. So if we do the prefix Canopy here, now whatever comes after the semicolon here can be any supported script event Canopy command. So there are only a couple of them at the moment. For example, we can do, this is the same as doing /counter. You can see it's going to print out every single one of our items. And so this is the same thing. The use for these is that they can go in a command block just like this. If I press this, I get all of that. This one is the same as counter reset. You can say reset all hopper counters. And the same thing exists with the spawn tracking command. So I'm going to make sure I am spawn tracking start here. Okay, spawns are being tracked, and it will show me the statistics. And additionally, we can do spawn test in a command block, just like this. So these work great. These are kind of in the world shortcuts just for you to reset things and manage your hopper counters and spawn tracking a little bit easier. So moving on to the health command. This command helps you monitor your world's tick speed and things like the number of entities that exist in dimensions and things like that. So if we type in just /health, press enter, we can see that there are 4 entities in the overworld, 0 in the nether, 0 in the end, and a total of 4. Additionally, TPS is 20. We can also see that in the info display, and the MSPT is 4. So I'm back in this world to show you the next command, which is entity density. This command can be used to identify clusters of entities that may be lagging out your world. So the way you use it is /entity density. If we just press enter, it'll say invalid dimension and grid size. It'll tell you some values that you can use for it. So if we do entity density, and we adhere to these, we need to put in a dimension first. We can just say overworld. And then we can say a grid size. Now, this command works by essentially dividing the world up into grids, and it will tell you how many entities are within each grid block. So if you want a very large grid, you could say like 512. There's 450 entities right around here where I'm standing. in the overworld, and then there's 110. One of the grid lines goes right through this farm, or probably right through one of the edges like this. We can make it a little bigger, see if we get all of those in one block, and we do. So all of these 577 entities we can see are at generally this location, and so those are all close together. You can also see that there's one entity that is far away from here and still loaded. So if something like this was in our world and maybe there weren't supposed to be this many entities there, you could go check it out and try to clear some of the lag. So next is the /data command. This will basically give you a bunch of the information that the ScriptAPI can give you. So if I come over here and look at a block and I do /data, it'll tell me things like it's a chest, where it's located, what dimension, a bunch of properties. These are states, so these are just read out from whatever the block or entity might have, tell you what kind of components or tags it has. So we can do that for the furnace as well. And we can do the same thing for a chicken. Every entity has an ID, and they've got a lot of components because these are all navigation and AI stuff. An entity can also have dynamic properties. These are typically used by behavior packs, so things like the player. If you were to use /data on a player, you would see a lot of dynamic properties here. You could also see if they have any potion effects or other tags and stuff. And additionally, for entities, this can tell you the location of the head, their rotation, velocity, and view direction. The /distance command will help you get the distance between 2 points in your world. So the easiest way to use it is just to do /distance target. And this will get me the distance between the block I'm looking at and my player. You can see this goes from the eye level of the player to the block I'm looking at. Cartesian distance is just a straight line from here to there. Cartesian XZ is without the y coordinate, so a flat distance. And Manhattan distance is essentially how many blocks you would need to go from here to there. So the main distance command looks like this. You go distance from a set of coordinates. I'm going to use the block position. And then we can go distance to another set of coordinates. I'm going to use my position. This should be similar, but a little bit different from the other one because it uses my foot level instead of my eye level. Now in the /distance command, a lot of these things can be replaced with defaults. So if I don't specify coordinates here, it will use my current position. To make this even simpler, I can do /distance from, and if I don't specify coordinates here, it will use my current position, but I want to use this block position, so I'm going to get the position of that block and put it in. And you can see now it's going to save the position of that red block. So now we can calculate the distance between multiple different places and that one block. So if we just go here and we go /distance to, get the position of this block, put that in, we can see it's exactly 14 blocks away, Manhattan distance, etc. And we can use it over here. Specify the coordinates this time, just so you can see it works with your position as well. And that's about it for the distance command. And now we can move on to logging. The log command can help you understand the lifetime of entities like TNT, falling blocks, and projectiles by telling you their locations. So for TNT, the command is /log TNT. And once we start logging the TNT, we can basically drop a couple pieces of TNT, and when they explode, it will tell us exactly where they started and where they exploded. We can turn it off just by running the same command again. We can log projectiles, like tridents and arrows and things like that, just by logging those. And you can see when we shoot a bow, it will give us a running set on where the arrow is for each tick. You can see some of these are gray and some of these are red. That means it's moved in that tick. The same can be said for falling blocks. So if you do /log falling_blocks and we drop like the sand, we can see that the Y positions are changing, but the X positions are not. This is great in controlled environments, but if we have too much happening at once, it can get overwhelming rather quickly. Additionally, with the log command, you can specify a precision afterwards. So if you wanted something like 7 decimal places of precision, then we can set the logging precision to 7. And now when a TNT explodes, it's going to give us a lot more precision on this thing. And that's about it for logging. So now we can look at how you can help yourself find things in a chest monster. The peek command is an alternative to using the InfoDisplay to look at inventories. Now it can be used just by doing /peek. That will show you exactly what's in this shulker box. If we're looking for something in particular, we can specify the name of that item in the command. And this will highlight any redstone that appears in any of these shulker boxes. So if we take a look around, oh, I saw some red. There it is, redstone. Nice and easy. Doesn't that make life easier? So now let's talk about /track event. This is a very powerful command that lets you essentially count the number of times that any event in the game that can be tracked by the ScriptAPI occurs. First things first, you want to make sure that the event trackers option is enabled in your InfoDisplay. And then to start tracking an event, you do /track event, and then you specify the name of the event. I'm going to use player break block. So there are 2 kinds of events in Minecraft behavior packs. There are before events, which occur before an event happens, and after events, which occur after an event happens. In this command, you do have to specify whether it is an after event or a before event. This is an after event, and you can find out all of this information about what events are available and what type of event they are in the documentation for Bedrock behavior packs. So I'm going to run this command. It's going to start tracking player break block after event. You can see it in my InfoDisplay. And so when I break this block, it should count. And this will happen with any blocks that I break. I'm going to set up a couple of other events to track here, and we can look at the types of things that we can track. So I've now started tracking a couple other things, like button pushes, like pistons activating, and even whenever we send a message in chat. So as you can see, tracking these events is a powerful tool. If you want to discover what kinds of events you can track, I will link the before events and after events page so you can look at all the types of events that you can track. When you're done tracking, just run the same thing again. So that's about it for this video on Canopy. I've decided to split up the complete guide into 2 videos, so the next one will talk about creative tools and survival tools. There are some commands left to cover and some features. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.